A man came to see me about 2 years ago. He was 64, retired engineer from New Jersey, very composed, the kind of man who chooses his words carefully. He sat down in my office, looked at the floor for a moment, and then told me what had happened. He had met a woman about 3 months after his wife passed. Not looking, it just happened. A mutual friend's dinner party. They talked for 3 hours. He said it was the first evening since losing his wife that he hadn't felt completely alone inside. They exchanged numbers, started seeing each other slowly, and after about 6 weeks, the night arrived where it was clear something more was going to happen. He said he didn't tell her anything beforehand. He thought, it'll be fine. It'll work itself out. It didn't. Something happened in that room that he wasn't prepared for. His body didn't cooperate the way he'd hoped, and in the silence that followed, the particular silence of two people lying in the dark, not knowing what to say, he said something in him collapsed. Not just embarrassment, something deeper than that. Like the evening had taken something from him that he wasn't sure how to get back. She was kind about it. She was genuinely kind. But the dynamic between them changed after that night. A new self-consciousness entered the relationship. Something careful and slightly fragile that wasn't there before. And a few weeks later, quietly it ended. He sat in my office and said, I just wish I'd said something before. Just something simple. I think if I had said something, that night would have gone completely differently. He was right. It would have. And that is exactly what this video is about. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Valerie Hayes, and every week I come to this channel and have the real, honest, practical conversations about sex and intimacy for men over 50 that most people won't have anywhere else. If this is a place you need, hit subscribe right now and ring the notification bell. You'll enjoy the community. So let's move to the topic for today. Before I tell you what to say and how to say it, I want to spend a moment on something that will change the entire way you approach this conversation. Because most men who try to have the conversation get it wrong. It's not because they say the wrong thing, but because they go into it with the wrong frame. You see, most men approach this as a confession. They think of it as damage control, as apologizing in advance, as admitting to something they're ashamed of before she discovers it herself. And that energy, apologetic, defensive, slightly desperate, is exactly what makes the conversation land the wrong way. She hears the shame before she hears the words. And shame is contagious. If he is ashamed of it, she absorbs that. The thing becomes bigger than it is, more serious than it needs to be. Here is the reframe I want you to carry into this. This is not a confession. This is a man who knows himself telling a woman the truth about who he is before they get into a room together. That is a completely different thing. A man who knows his body, who understands his rhythms, what works for him, what he needs, what the experience of being with him actually looks like, and who respects a woman enough to tell her that before she finds out on her own. That man is not exposing a weakness. He is demonstrating something that most men at any age are incapable of. Self-knowledge, honesty, the quiet confidence of a man who has nothing to hide because he has decided to simply tell the truth. That is not a turnoff. I am going to tell you shortly exactly what it is. But first, let me tell you what to actually say. The single most important rule is this: say it before, never during. During is too late. during her nervous system is already in the experience, and anything you say in that moment lands as a surprise, as an interruption, as something gone wrong. Earlier that evening, over dinner, on a walk, in a quiet moment when you're close, but not yet intimate, it is simply two people being honest with each other. The context is completely different. The same words land completely differently depending on when they're said. Before. Always before. Now. What to actually say. The first thing. Keep it short. This is not a speech. It is not a detailed medical history. It is 1 or 2 sentences said calmly, said warmly, and then released. You say it and you let it sit. You do not elaborate unless she asks. You do not fill the silence with more explanation. You do not apologize 3 times. You say it once clearly, and you let her respond. The second thing, say it in plain language, without clinical distance, and without euphemism. Not so raw that it feels clinical. Not so vague that she doesn't understand what you mean. Just honest, the way you'd tell someone something true about yourself that you'd decided they deserved to know. Here are some ways it can sound, and I want you to hear the tone as much as the words, because the tone is everything. I want to be upfront with you about something. My body doesn't always perform exactly on cue these days. It doesn't mean I don't want you. It just means sometimes we might need to slow down or take a different approach. I wanted you to know before rather than have it come as a surprise. Or even simpler. Before we get there, I want you to know that I'm not 25 anymore, and my body reminds me of that sometimes. I just didn't want you to be caught off guard. We'll figure it out together. That last line is important. We'll figure it out together. 4 words that shift the entire dynamic from him carrying something alone to both of them being in it as partners. You'll notice what's not in either of those. There is no apology. There is no shame spiral. There is no over-explanation. There is honesty. There is warmth. And there is an invitation for her to be a partner in the experience rather than a spectator of it. That invitation is what changes everything. Let me tell you what actually happens when a man says something like that. I have a close friend. She's in her early 50s, sharp. No patience for pretense. She told me about a man she had started seeing last year. They had been on a few dates, and things were clearly moving somewhere. And one evening, over a glass of wine on his porch, he said something to her. Simply, calmly. He told her there was something she should know about him before things went further. That his body had its own rhythms now, and he didn't always have full control over them. And he just wanted her to know that going in. She told me she looked at him for a moment and thought, I have never had a man do that. Not once. In her entire adult life. No man had ever sat with her before an intimate encounter and just told her the truth about himself. Every other man had either said nothing and hoped for the best, or said something mid-encounter when it was already uncomfortable. This man told her ahead of time, calmly, without falling apart. She said what she felt in that moment was not sympathy. It was not pity. It was attraction. A specific, immediate, visceral attraction to the fact that this man was so settled in himself that he could say that out loud without flinching. She said, I trusted him before we even got into the bedroom. And that trust changed every single thing about what happened when we did. That is what honest, calm self-disclosure does when it is delivered correctly. It does not reduce his attractiveness. For the right woman, it amplifies it. Now, I want to be honest with you about something. Not every woman will respond the way my friend did. Some women, when a man says something like this, will pull back, will become uncertain, will let the dynamic shift in a direction that doesn't feel good. And here is what I want you to understand about that. A woman who cannot receive honest, calm self-disclosure from a man she is choosing to be intimate with, who responds to his honesty with distance or judgment, is telling you something about herself that you needed to know before you were vulnerable with her. This conversation is not just preparation for the bedroom. It is a filter, a quiet, respectful way of finding out whether this woman is actually capable of the kind of intimacy that a man at this stage of his life deserves to have. The ones who respond with warmth, with curiosity, with that particular quality of leaning in, those are the women worth being in that room with. And you will know who they are because of how they respond to this conversation. That is not a small thing. That is invaluable information given to you before the moment where the stakes are highest. Now I want to come back to the man I told you about at the beginning. The engineer from New Jersey. The one who sat in my office and said he wished he had said something. We worked together for a while. And eventually he met someone else, and this time, on their fourth date, over dinner at a quiet restaurant in the city, he said something short, honest, warm. He told her there were things about his body she should know about before things went further. He said it the way we had practiced, not as a confession, not as an apology, but as a simple, honest truth offered to a woman he respected. He told me afterward that she reached across the table and put her hand over his, and she said, "Thank you for telling me. It means a lot that you did." That relationship is still going, not because he performed perfectly, because he showed up honestly, and she met that honesty with exactly what it deserved. I want to close with this. The conversation I've described today is not just about managing an awkward moment. It is about deciding what kind of man you are going to be in your intimate life from here forward. A man who hides and hopes, or a man who knows himself, tells the truth, and invites the right woman to meet him there. Men over 50 have lived enough to know that hiding things from people you want to be close to never works. It just delays the moment of truth and makes everything harder when it arrives. So say it before. Say it simply. Say it without shame, and then watch what the right woman does with that. My weekly newsletter is where I go deeper than this platform allows. I talk about what women actually want to hear from the men they're with. What creates trust before a word has been spoken in the bedroom, and more tips to help make your bedroom life an experience. Practical, honest, unfiltered, delivered every week to over 10,000 men over 50 like you. It's free, and the link to sign up is in the description area and in the comment section. And before I go, drop a comment below. Have you ever been in the room I described at the beginning? That silence, that moment where you wished you had said something beforehand? Or have you had the other version, where you did say something and it changed everything? Tell me what your experience has been. This community is full of men who have been exactly where you are, and your words below might be exactly what someone watching tonight needs to read. I'll see you next week. Take good care.